A chameleon is walking down a path, slowly. One foot lifted, held in the air, set down. He is carrying the most important message ever sent. The message is 4 words long. Humans will not die. That is it. That is the whole thing. The God who sent him meant it. People were supposed to live forever. All the chameleon has to do is arrive. But there are berries beside the path. Purple, soft, ripe, and the chameleon has never been in a hurry in his life. So he stops, he eats, he turns each eye separately at the leaves. The morning goes by, and somewhere behind him on the same road a lizard begins to run, fast, low to the ground, never stopping, because the god changed his mind, and the lizard is carrying the second message: humans will die. The lizard arrives first. He delivers it. And the thing is spoken, and once a thing is spoken, it is true. When the chameleon finally comes up the path, still chewing, it is already too late. Nobody wants his news anymore. That is why you are going to die. Not because of a serpent, not because of a fruit, because a messenger stopped for a snack. This story is told by the Zulu of southern Africa, and by peoples 2,000 miles away who have never met them. Different animals, different gods, the same wrong messenger arriving first. And this is where I have to stop and tell you something uncomfortable, because you probably came here looking for African mythology, and I have to be honest with you, there is no such thing. There never was. It is not a pantheon. It is not a religion. It is a shelf we built to put a continent on. By the end of this, you will understand why the single most important fact about these traditions is the one that gets erased first. So let me show you the size of the problem. Look at a map, not the flat one you grew up with. The flat map lies. It shrinks Africa. On a globe, you can drop the United States into Africa, and China, and India, and most of Europe, and there is still room left over. That is one landmass. Now count the languages, not dialects, languages. Linguists count somewhere around 2,000 of them, roughly a third of every human language alive today, not variations of each other. Whole separate families, as unrelated as English is to Chinese, and every one of them carries its own gods, its own dead, its own account of how the sky got up there. So when someone says African mythology, ask what that would mean anywhere else. Imagine a book called European Mythology, and inside it, Odin and Zeus and Perun are all sitting at the same table, in the same pantheon, explaining the same world. You would close the book. You would call it nonsense, because a Norwegian and a Greek and a Slav did not share a religion. They shared a continent, and a continent is not a faith. It is just dirt with a coastline. And yet Africa gets that treatment constantly. One shelf, one label. One imaginary pantheon assembled out of parts that never touched. So we are not going to do that. Instead, I am going to take you traveling. Real places, real peoples, named out loud. West Africa first, into the humid forest. Then north to the cliffs of Mali. Then south, into the grass. And one more warning before we start, because this matters more than anything else I will say today. Most of what got written down about these traditions was not written down by the people who believed them. It was written by colonial officials, by anthropologists on short trips, and above all by missionaries, whose actual job was to replace what they were recording. Think about what that does to a source. A man arrives. He does not speak the language well. He is there to convert you. He asks about your gods. You answer carefully because he has power over you, and he writes down what he expected to hear. Then that book becomes the reference, and the reference becomes the encyclopedia, and the encyclopedia becomes the video you are watching now. So everything downstream carries a fingerprint that does not belong to it. I will point at that fingerprint every time I see it. And one absence you will notice: Egypt, the pyramids, Osiris, Ra, the weighing of the heart. Egypt is African, nobody serious disputes that. But it is a state religion with 3,000 years of its own writing. It needs its own hour, and it has one on this channel. Squeezing it in here would be exactly the flattening I just warned you about. So, West Africa, the forest belt. Heavy air, red earth, rivers, the color of tea. This is Yoruba land, southwestern Nigeria, running into Benin, tens of millions of people. Cities older than most of Europe's. Ife, Oyo. Benin City, whose casters made faces so exact that Europeans, when they finally saw them, refused to believe Africans made them. And above it all, at the top, there is a god. His name is Olodumare. He is also called Olorun, owner of the sky. He made everything. Every breath in every chest is on loan from him. And here is what will surprise you. There are almost no temples to him, almost no priests, almost no offerings. Not because he is hated, because he is far. He set the world going and he withdrew from it. Not gone, not dead, just at a distance no prayer bothers to cross. You do not phone the head of state about your leaking roof. So who do you phone? This is the answer, and it is the heart of the whole tradition. The orisha. Not gods exactly, not saints, not spirits, something the English language does not have a slot for. Think of them as forces with faces, aspects of the divine that came close enough to be known and argued with and fed. There are said to be 400 plus one of them, which is a number that means more than you can count, and then one more. Obatala, the one in white, the elder, the cool head, the one Olodumare trusted with the most delicate job there was, shaping human bodies, out of clay, by hand, one at a time. Every body you have ever seen came out of his fingers. And one day, the stories say, he drank palm wine while he worked, and his hands were not steady. And the bodies that came out of that day were not like the others, bent, different, made unlike the pattern. Now watch what the tradition does next, because this is the moment that tells you what kind of religion this is. It does not throw those people away. It does not call them cursed. It makes Obatala their patron, their protector. Personally, they belong to him more than anyone else does. And to mock one of them is to insult a god to his face. And Obatala himself never drinks palm wine again. A god who made a mistake and spent eternity looking after the people it fell on. Now meet a very different temperament. Thunder over the Oyo grassland, the sky splitting white, shango, lightning, fire, drums, male beauty and male danger in the same body, carrying a double-headed axe. And here is what makes him extraordinary. Shango in Yoruba tradition was a man, a real one, a king, an Eliaphim of Oyo. The third or the fourth, depending on who is counting, he ruled. He was terrifying, and his reign ended badly. And after his death he did not fade, he was raised. A king became a force of nature. So when lightning hits a house in Yoruba land, it is not weather, it is somebody's ancestor, and he is not calm. And where Shango is, there is Oya, his wife, and nobody's property. Oya is the wind before the storm, the one that strips the roof and flattens the field in 9 seconds. She is also the Niger River. The Yoruba call it Odo Oya, the river of Oya. Look at a map of West Africa and you are looking at her. And she stands at the gate of the cemetery, not inside it. At the gate, she is the change itself, the doorway, the thing you cannot go back through. Storm, river, and the threshold of the dead held by one woman. That is not a minor goddess. That is the hinge of the world. Now listen for hammering. Odin, iron, war, the forge. He is the one who went first. When the orisha came down and found the world choked with bush, nobody could get through. They tried. They failed. And Odin took a blade of iron and cut the road himself. He is the one who opens the way, which makes him the patron of everyone whose hands touch metal. The blacksmith, the hunter, the soldier. And here is the part people miss. He did not stop in the Iron Age. He is not a museum piece. Odin is metal. So Odin is the truck driver, the mechanic, the surgeon holding the scalpel. Living gods do not retire. They get new tools. Now to the water, yemoja. And to understand her, you have to watch her change. In Nigeria, she is a river, fresh water running through Yoruba land. Mother of fish, mother, full stop, hold that, a river goddess. Because in a few minutes she is going to get on a ship, and she is not going to stay a river. And underneath all of this sits the thing that actually organizes Yoruba life. Not a god, a system, Ifa, the divination. Its orisha is Orunmila, who was present when every destiny was chosen and therefore knows what yours is. Its priests are called Babalawo, father of secrets. And the training is not a weekend, it is years. Some say a lifetime. Because the Babalawo has to memorize the Odu. There are 256 of them, 16 squared, and every single one carries its own body of verses, stories, precedents, songs, medicines, held in the head, no book. The diviner casts, the pattern lands, it names one of the 256. And then he recites what that pattern has always meant. It is not fortune-telling. It is closer to case law. Your situation happened before. Here is what it was, and here is what it cost. It is a library with no shelves, carried in living men, transmitted mouth to ear for centuries, without a single page. And now we get to the one you have been lied to about. Eshu. Also called Elegba, Elegbara. He is the messenger. He carries every word between the orisha and Olodumare, and between the orisha and you. He is the lord of the crossroads, the place where the roads split, where you have to choose and cannot know. Nothing moves without him. Not one prayer arrives, not one offering lands, unless Eshu agrees to carry it. Which is why he eats first. Every ritual before anything else feeds Eshu, not out of fear, out of protocol. And he is a trickster. He plays with people. In one famous story, he walks a road wearing a hat. The hat is one color on the left side, another on the right. Two friends stand on either side of the road and watch him pass. Afterwards, they argue. White hat, black hat, white, black. They know what they saw. Old friends, and they come to blows over it, because each of them is telling the truth, and each of them saw half. That is, Eshu. That is the whole lesson, delivered in one hat. You saw what you saw, and you saw one side. Now, in the 1800s, the Bible is translated into Yoruba for the Church Missionary Society, and the translators need a word for the devil, the adversary, the enemy of God. And here is the twist nobody expects. The man leading that translation is Yoruba himself, Samuel Ajayi Crowther, and he picks Eshu. Look at what that swap actually does. The devil is God's enemy. The devil wants your ruin. The devil is outside, in rebellion, forever. Eshu is God's messenger. Eshu is on the payroll. He is not outside the system. He is the switchboard of it. Trickster and devil are not the same category, not even close. One tests you, the other hunts you. But that translation is now in millions of Bibles. It has been read from pulpits for well over a century. So today, across Nigeria, there are people who have never heard Eshu mean anything but the devil. A god was overwritten by a translation choice. That is the clearest example of the fingerprint I warned you about. Now go west, along the coast, Ghana, Ivory Coast, the land of the Akan and of the Ashanti kingdom. This is a place of gold, not gold in a story. Gold in the ground, and gold on the arm, and gold on the stool of the king. And symbols, stamped into cloth. The Akan call them adinkra. Each one is a saying compressed to a shape. One of them is Gianyame, two spirals folded around each other, and what it says is, except for God. Nyame, the sky god of the Akan, the supreme one, and notice the shape of him, far away, above. Not petitioned about small things. Second time you have heard that today, in a completely unrelated tradition. Hold that thought, it matters at the end. Because the figure the Akan actually tell stories about is not Nyame, it is a spider. Anansi, Kwaku Anansi. He is small. He is greedy, he is lazy, he is a liar and not sorry. He is also, pound for pound, the most successful character in the history of world storytelling. And here is the story that proves it. In the beginning, all the stories in the world belong to Nyame. Nobody else has any. And Anansi climbs up to the sky and says, "Name your price." And Nyame looks down at a spider and laughs. Because the price is impossible. Whole peoples have failed it. Bring me 4 things. Onini the python, who is longer than any man, alive. Emoboro the hornets, a whole swarm of them, alive. Osibo the leopard, with the teeth, alive. And Emoatia, the spirit that nobody has ever laid a hand on. Bring me those 4, spider, and the stories are yours. And Anansi says, fine, and goes home to think. The python first. Anansi walks past Onini arguing loudly with his wife about whether the snake is really as long as a certain palm branch. And the python, insulted, says, measure me. So Anansi lays him along the branch and ties him to it to keep him straight, obviously. The hornets next. Anansi sprinkles water on them and on himself and cries out that the rain is coming. Here, he says, get in this gourd, you will stay dry. And they do, every one of them. And he corks it. The leopard falls into a pit. Anansi offers to help him out. Naturally, the leopard says yes. Naturally, that is a mistake. And the spirit is caught with a doll smeared in sticky gum. She hits it. Her hand sticks. She hits it again. Anansi carries all 4 up to the sky and lays them at the feet of the god of everything. And Nyame, in front of his whole court, has to admit that a spider did what kings could not. So the stories are handed over. And from that day, they are not Nyame's stories. They are Anansi's stories. Amansesum. That is the Akan word for a folktale. It means, literally, spider stories. All of them. The whole category is named after him. And now watch that spider do the thing nobody expected. Watch him get on a ship. Because for roughly 4 centuries, ships came to this coast, and people were carried away in them across the ocean. Everything was taken. Names, language, family, land, freedom, every single thing a person can be stripped of, except what is inside a head, and Anansi is inside a head, and a head cannot be searched. So he crosses, and he lands in the Caribbean, and he is still there today. In Jamaica they call him Anansi, and here is why that is not a small thing. Look at who Anansi is: small, weak, no claws, surrounded by leopards and pythons who could end him in a second, and he wins anyway, every time, with nothing but his mind. Now ask what that story is worth to a person who has been made powerless by force. Ask why it survived the crossing when so much else did not. It was not entertainment, it was instruction. The weak one outlasts the strong one, and does it by thinking. Now, the claim you have probably heard, that Anansi became Brer Rabbit in the American South, and here I have to slow down. Because the honest answer is more careful than the popular one. Brer Rabbit is unmistakably African descended. That part is not in doubt. He is the small, clever one who beats the strong. He is caught by a sticky doll, exactly as the spirit was caught by Anansi's. But a rabbit is not a spider. And hair tricksters of their own are told across other parts of Africa entirely. Enslaved people in the American South came from many regions, not just a country. Their stories arrived, met, and merged. So Brer Rabbit is not Anansi wearing fur. He is a confluence. Anansi is in there. He is not alone in there. Now go north, out of the forest, into Mali, until the ground breaks in half. The Bandiagara escarpment, a sandstone cliff running 150 kilometers like a wall built by weather, and built into the face of it, in the rock, in the shadow, are villages, houses, granaries with conical caps packed against the stone. These are the Dogon, and in their tradition the creator is Amma, and from Amma come the Namo, ancestral beings of the water, paired, twinned. The Dogon world runs on twinness, on doubling, on things that come in matched sets. Their granaries are a cosmos in mud. Their villages are laid out on the body of a person. Everything is a diagram of everything else. It is one of the most intricate systems of thought ever recorded from anywhere on Earth, and almost nobody talks about any of it. Because of one thing, one claim. You have heard it, and it goes like this. The Dogon knew about Sirius B, a companion star, invisible to the naked eye, orbiting the brightest star in our sky. White dwarf, enormously dense, a 50-year orbit, a thing you cannot see without a telescope, and which Western astronomy only confirmed in the 1800s. And this claim says the Dogon had it, secretly, anciently, which leads to the obvious question, and the obvious answer people love. Somebody told them. Somebody from out there. And I have to take that away from you, because it does not survive contact with the record. Here is where it comes from. Two French anthropologists working with the Dogon in the middle of the 20th century, publishing what they were told. Now, decades later, another anthropologist goes and lives among the Dogon, years, speaks with them, asks carefully without leading, and he cannot find it. No Dogon he works with knows the secret star, not the elders, not the initiates, nobody. He finds Sirius mattering, yes, for the calendar, but the invisible companion, the density, the orbit, nothing, it is not there. And then the timing. Sirius B had been known to European astronomers since the 1860s, and there was a wave of excitement about it in the 1920s, which is exactly when Europeans, missionaries, school teachers, officials were moving through that region talking to people. And the interview itself does work. Ask a leading question long enough through interpreters to people who want to satisfy you, and an answer forms. Not lying, building, together. That is what a bad interview does. It creates the thing it came to find. So the most probable answer is the dull one. It came from us. It went in, it came back out, and we called it ancient. And notice what the legend cost. It took one of the most sophisticated cosmologies on Earth and reduced it to a UFO story. The Dogon built a universe out of twins and water and grain, and we only remember them for a rumor we started ourselves. Now south, 2,000 miles, down to where the grass is high and the sky is enormous, Zulu country in southern Africa. And in Zulu tradition, in the beginning, there is a bed of reeds, ulanga, and out of the reeds people break off. And the first one out is called unkulunkulu. The name means more or less the very old one, the great one, the ancestor before the ancestors. He is first man and maker at once. He breaks off the reed, and then he breaks off everything else, cattle, fire, marriage, death. And he is the one who sends the chameleon, which is where we started, and now you know whose god that was. But this one carries a warning label too, and it is a big one. Because almost everything we have about unkulunkulu comes through a missionary who collected Zulu testimony in the 1800s and published it, and he was, by the standards of his day, careful. He wrote down what people actually said. He printed their disagreements, and the disagreements are the point. His informants did not agree with each other about who unkulunkulu even was. Some said the first man. Some said the creator. Some said the ancestor of one family only. Some used another name entirely for the one above. Meanwhile, the missions had already taken unkulunkulu as their Zulu word for the Christian God and had been preaching it for years. So the Zulu people being interviewed had already heard their own word handed back to them with a foreign meaning attached, which means we cannot fully separate what was there before from what the preaching put there. The record is disturbed at the source. That is not a reason to dismiss it. It is a reason to hold it correctly. This is not a scripture. It is a transcript taken under pressure. And now the pattern. Because that chameleon is not only Zulu, not remotely, the wrong messenger turns up across huge stretches of the continent in unrelated languages among people with no shared history. Sometimes it is the chameleon and the lizard. Sometimes the animals change entirely. Sometimes it is the moon who sends the message, and a hare who garbles it. Different creatures, different senders, the same shape underneath. Death entered the world as an administrative error, not as punishment, not as sin. Nobody disobeyed, nobody ate the fruit. Somebody was just slow. Sit with how strange that is. Your mortality is not your fault. It is not anybody's fault. It is a delivery failure. Now go north and east across the Bantu-speaking world, Tanzania, Malawi, Kenya, Mozambique, and among a number of peoples there you find a name for the highest one, Mulungu, and attached to that name, again and again, is a story about him leaving, going up, withdrawing to the sky, away from people. In some tellings the noise of people drove him off. In others they pushed too close, and he stepped back. Either way, the end state is identical. He is above, and he is not in the room. And that is now the third time. Olodumare, far. Nyame, far. Mulungu, far. Three traditions, no shared origin, the same architecture. So look at what we found by traveling instead of lumping. Not one mythology, but real patterns, and they are more interesting than a fake pantheon ever was. Pattern 1. The high god is distant. supreme, uncontested, and functionally absent, which is not neglect, it is a claim about scale. The infinite is not something you bother with about a fever. So the traffic goes to the ones who are close. Orisha, ancestors, spirits of the river and the road. Religion happens at arm's length. Pattern 2. The trickster is the hero, not the villain, not the tempter, the protagonist. Anansi lies his way to owning literature itself. Eshu runs the messages and wears the hat, and the tradition loves them for it. Because in a world where the strong are very strong, the story that keeps you alive is not about the strongest man. It is about the smallest one who thinks faster. That is not a childish moral. That is a survival document. Pattern 3. Death by miscommunication. The chameleon, the lizard, the hare, the message that went wrong on the road. Pattern 4, and maybe the deepest one. The dead do not leave. Across most of these traditions, the ancestors are not gone and not memorialized. They are present, involved, consulted, fed. They have opinions about who you marry. They notice when you neglect them. They are family, and death did not end their membership. And that is what the missionaries understood least and mislabeled fastest. They saw people talking to the dead and wrote down, worship. But it is not worship. Nobody thinks grandmother is God. It is kinship, extended past the grave. It is a household that includes the buried. And now, the last thing, the one that makes all of this the opposite of a museum. Go back to the ships. Millions of people were taken from these coasts across the Atlantic over roughly 4 centuries, and they arrived with nothing. No property, no name, no language they were permitted to speak, and their religion was forbidden. So it did what living things do under pressure. It did not die, it went quiet, and it wore something else. In Cuba, the orisha of the Yoruba are still standing, and their names are still their names. Shango, yemoja, Odin, eshu. The tradition there is called lukumi, and the world knows it as santeria. And it did not survive by hiding. It survived by translating. In Brazil, it is candomble, carrying Yoruba lines, and phone lines, and Central African lines, in separate branches that remember which is which. And in Haiti, voodoo. And get the origin right, because almost nobody does. Voodoo is not simply Yoruba exported. Its spine is fon and u, from Dahomey, from the word vodun, meaning spirit, plus a deep Congo current out of Central Africa. Different peoples, thrown together on the same island by the same catastrophe, building one faith out of what each of them still had. And yemoja, the river goddess I told you to hold on to. Watch what the ocean does to her. She goes across as a river. She arrives as the sea. Yemoja in Cuba, yemoja in Brazil. Of course she does. The people carrying her had just crossed the Atlantic. The water in their story got bigger because the water in their lives did. And every New Year's Eve on the beaches of Brazil, people wade into the surf at night and put white flowers on the water for her. Not as heritage, not as performance, as prayer from a river goddess's children to the ocean she became. So do not file any of this under mythology if mythology means over. None of it is over. Ifa is being cast in Nigeria this week. Adinkra is on a wall in Ghana right now. Someone is being initiated tonight in Havana or Bahia or Brooklyn. These are not the beliefs of the dead. They are the beliefs of the living, and they outlasted the ships and the missions and the encyclopedias that misfiled them. And that is why the first thing I said matters most. There is no African mythology. There is Yoruba. There is Akan. There is Dogon. There is Zulu. There are 1,000 more we did not have time to name. Each one somebody's whole world. Each one entitled to its own name, spoken correctly by people who bothered to learn it. The chameleon is still on the road, still slow, still carrying the good news that would have saved us all. And the least we can do while we wait is stop pretending we already know what he was going to say.